we've got to get onto the Brentford game. If Spurs was a good fight back that showed plenty of spirit, Brentford was just one of those games that disappointed on so many levels. Steve, going to start with the team selection, I guess. Lavia and Walcott dropping out of the team, Elyounoussi, Diallo coming in. We were all like, what on earth is going on? Could you understand why he made the changes? I know he was trying to justify it afterwards. He was asked about it, and rightly so, but it was a strange one for me.
The justification I thought was kind of a little bit disingenuous, but managers will always kind of shield players from
Did
any.
he say it was a no-brainer? He said it was a no-brainer to bring them in.
Yeah, he says a no-brainer because he played 3 games in a certain amount of time. So Diallo has been working really well. It was a no-brainer.
As I've said before, we've got no idea what goes on at Staplewood day in, day out. So it may well be that Diallo has looked amazing in those training sessions, but the guys around him, regardless of whether Diallo himself was any good or not, the guy, as Glenn mentioned earlier, the guys around him gave him absolutely nothing. There was no movement around him. Nobody was showing for a pass that wasn't basically eye of a needle, 1% chance of actually pulling it off. A couple of times he tried it, and he kind of almost got through, but they didn't at the end of the day. And the problem is that everyone then takes their frustration out on him, and his confidence drops. So what does he do? He then turns and plays a safe pass every time. And he wasn't the only one that did it. Prowse was doing it a lot. Yeah. Perrault was doing it a lot rather than try and take on their fullback. It was just frustrating. Brentford came for a point. With the intention of, if they get set pieces, then right, this is where we're going to hurt them. And we gave them basically 3 really good opportunities in that first half from corners, and third time lucky they kind of got it right. Having been given those let-offs, there should have been a little bit of a chat and a reorganisation, because those were the same corners that we were getting done by Leeds back in August. Exactly the same. Near post flick, leaves someone completely unmarked at the far post. And it seems as if we're still not quite learning our lesson from these. So that was kind of the biggest concern, I thought, from the Brentford game. There was a lot of effort, and look at the possession stats. I think we had something like 75% possession in that second half. Brentford basically didn't bother getting out of their half until that breakaway goal in injury time. It's been a while since I've seen a team that is that determined to basically take all of the time off the clock in such a cynical way as they did. It must have been 7 players down injured in that second half. Throw-ins were taking more than a minute to get back in play. Goal kicks, at least that, if not more. David Raya constantly picking the ball up and moving it to the other side of the goal, having already placed it down. But the ref had no interest in it, and he was quite happy just to get out of there with the bare minimum, really. So that was frustrating. But I think let's be honest, we could have played that game all night and not come anywhere near scoring. So it's not down to the time wasting that we lost that game. But it's just it's another thing that kind of piles up on top of the kind of disappointment that you see, because if there was a sense at the start, like early in the game, because Raya was doing this like in the first 5 minutes with the goal kicks, if there was a sense that the referee was going to be keeping on top of this, then at least the players know that they've got plenty of time in this game, because the ref isn't going to allow time to just drift away. And yet, from the very first whistle, he was allowing it all to go on, and we got and we got the bare minimum. I think it was 7 minutes added second half, and they had, as I say, they had 6 or 7 injury stoppages, all the subs. Obviously, Janssen came on and somehow managed to split his head open inside 30 seconds. It was just ridiculous. So it's surprising, isn't it, given the sort of media darling tags that Brentford have got for playing this sort of free-flowing football, high energy. And yet there wasn't really any of that. It was all stop-start. It was, right, get the game stopped. Someone go down injured. Somebody disrupt everything. Someone be a pain in the backside to to somebody so they get a reaction. Like when Tony goes and leaves a foot in on Bazunu with a few minutes to go. Bednarek, an absolutely fair play to him for doing this. We've had a pop at Bednarek for lack of team spirit and all the rest of it for the last 2 years, really. And yet he's the guy that's seen Tony do this, and he's gone in and confronted him about it, and he's absolutely right to do so. But of course, that situation then takes another 30 seconds to a minute off the clock. Bednarek gets a booking, and yeah, so that's more time that's gone, and it's just it was just infuriating, and it was one of those you just think, well, I mean, ref might as well just blown for full time at the start of the second half, because we were never going to be able to build up a head of steam while he was allowing all of that to go on. Even like if we basically put yesterday's second half performance in against Brentford, we wouldn't have been able to do it, because we'd have never built up any sort of momentum at all. It's just a dreadful watch.
Is this, Glenn, ultimately going to be our I mean, there'll be lots of things that will be our downfall coming into the season, but the points that we get against Chelsea, United, Spurs, they just don't mean as much when we follow them up with games like Leeds and Brentford. And I've got sort of one eye on West Ham that's coming up. It's a game which we think we ought to get more out of, and we don't. Is that going to be the problem come the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about it before. It's been a hell of a lot of 50-50 games that we've had this season, and we've lost virtually every one, usually scoring 0. And it's, you know, I'm only speaking from experience of our most recent top flight relegation in 2005. This is exactly what we did then. We lost all the winnable games, or didn't win them. And you know, usually we talk about Saints' season will be defined by the games against the other 14, if you like, and the games against the big boys are bonus games. But if our season was defined by results against the other 14, we'd be down already. Because no one was expecting 2 wins out of Chelsea. And I know they're not one of the big boys, but no one would have been expecting 2 wins against Leicester either, because they're seen as, at the start of the season, they were seen as one of the, you know, the better other teams. So that tells us that with the games coming up against, you know, City, Arsenal, Newcastle, maybe we can get something out of those. But we can't be going to West Ham and losing, because we're at that stage now with 10 games to go. We cannot be losing that game. But this Brentford game was another one where you're looking at it thinking, you know, Brentford at home, they've just lost. At the end of the day, yeah, they're doing well this season, but they're beatable. In the same way, again, you know, Fulham are doing well this year, but again, they're beatable. And we just didn't do enough. You know, we let in the rubbish goal from the free kick, which had been coming, and then did nothing. And it was just desperately disappointing again. And we've had it on a few occasions last year where we had a chance to win, to like break into the top half, and or before that we've had a chance to win to. Oh no, my dog's making an appearance. We, you know, we had a chance to win, to break into a European place or whatever. And every time we've had that sort of opportunity to do something concrete in the league, it's, you know, we've, I'm trying to think of a polite way of putting it.
Yeah, bottled it.
Messed the bed, basically. We've messed the bed, and it hasn't happened. So, it does worry me that, you know, if we've got a game towards the end of the season where win this and we'll stay up, it just seems to be something about the mentality. So whilst the mentality against Tottenham was great, the mentality against Brentford wasn't. And we can't afford any more of these missteps. You know, we've got to be competitive in every game from here on in, and just pick up as many points as we can, obviously. And what will be with the league table at the end. But
I don't want to dwell on the game too much, Alfie, but maybe just final point. Did we underestimate them? Did I underestimate them? I thought this was the free hit. We're going to win. We're going to move up to 16th or 17th, and it's going to be happy days. But actually, they are masters of wasting time. They've been playing together a long time. They're obviously a bit of a threat, but they were happy to kind of sit in and run the clock down. And that first goal changed the game. So in a way, did we underestimate them a bit? It's a tough game.
Yeah, they are masters of wasting time and whatnot. I do think that's a little bit undersells them a little bit. I think they are a genuinely very good team. They know how to play against good teams. They know how to play against bad teams as well, like Southampton have been this season. I think the warning signs were there from the last 2 times you've been to Griffin Park, and it's a very similar sort of game plan for them, isn't it? Just to destroy this, defensively relatively naive team aerially, and then not give them any spaces to attack, and say, actually, you're going to have to work out your own bits of quality to try and get through our defence. Because we're not. We don't believe that you'll do that. So I didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say this now because I predicted a win versus Brentford and I predicted a loss versus Spurs. But on reflection, it probably was very predictable that Brentford would come to St Mary's and would grind it out like that. I agree with Glenn wholeheartedly in terms of while I've been impressed by what I've seen at certain times by Southampton, I'm still a little bit worried about that big game moment. And when I say big game, I don't mean going to Old Trafford or whatnot. I mean playing against, like, say, Leeds or somebody else, Bournemouth even. That Bournemouth game's going to be huge, by the way. And you just have to hope that quality is enough there, because Southampton is a better team than Bournemouth. I don't doubt that for a second. But yeah, so I do worry a little bit. Can they pull out in the big moment? I think people like Jan Bednarek, as much as they are chaotic. They have to be the drivers of that. He can go one of two ways, can't it, with someone like Jan? We saw at Griffin Park last year. It's not in Griffin Park, is it? Brentford Community Stadium last year, just how much he could be destructive in the back line. But it looks like they're going to need him this time around. So yeah, a little bit worried, but we live in hope.